Hello lovely people and welcome back to my channel. So, because the first video was getting way too long, I decided to cut it in half. And here's the second part of 50 books to read before you die. Next up is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. It just doesn't ring a bell. I'm really sorry. After that, the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, so The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. The boyfriend has had these for quite a while, I think, judging their state. I've seen the movie of The Golden Compass, which was really bad in my opinion. But since these aren't really my books, my genre, I'm not sure if I'll ever read them. I've heard really good things about them though, so I might give the first one a try and see if I like it, and I might continue the whole trilogy, but I'm not too sure about it yet. Then we get to the Russian authors, Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. It's gonna be quite some heavy literature to read. I do want to read it though, and then see the movie. Haven't done either yet, but I'm really curious as to how heavy this Russian literature actually is. So I really want to give it a try. Never tried Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or any other Russian author yet. But I'm definitely up for it, and I'll see where we get. The next one is quite a favorite of mine. I really like reading it. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I have an edition with the second book in it as well, Through the Looking Glass. And I've read them both and I really love them. So finally I can cross something off again, because that, well, didn't happen for a while. After that we get Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, a French book originally. That's how much I know. I've heard good things about it, but since it's French and I kind of want to read it in French, then I'm not sure if I'll ever read it. I should probably just pick up an English or a Dutch translation and stick to that, because reading French is not gonna happen anytime soon. But I think it would be quite an interesting book to read, so that one might be crossed off someday. The next one is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. Heard about this quite a lot as well. It's quite a well-known book. Haven't read it though. After that we get On the Road by Jacques Kerouac. Is that how you pronounce his name? I just feel like that's it, but I might be completely wrong. I've heard about this author, not about his books though. At least I can't think of any titles. But since it's on this list, I think On the Road is quite a good book. So maybe I should give it a try. Then we move on to Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, which is in this massive Northern anthology of the English literature, of which I have 2 volumes. I had to buy this for university, and Heart of Darkness is one of the books in here. This thing is really heavy, I'm gonna put it down already. So we had to read Heart of Darkness for, I think, our first year literature course. I didn't really like it. It was very depressing, which is kind of the point of the book, I think, seeing it's called Heart of Darkness after all. I just didn't like it, but I did read it, so I can cross it off. Next up is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. Haven't heard of it, haven't read it. Same for The Outsider by Albert Camus. It's also completely unknown to me. I've seen it on my bookmark a zillion times, but I still have no idea what it's about or if I should read it. So if you've read it, let me know. Then next up is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. I've had this book for less than a year, but I read it, I think, about a few months ago. Did I read it this year? Yes, I did. It was quite hard to get through because the writing style is, well, it's not regular English, but it's the English of the main character, of Celie, and she never learned to write or to read. So it's quite difficult to get through, but it's such a fascinating story and so interesting to read. And I really love reading it. So, crossing this one off. After that, Life of Pi by Jan Martel. Haven't had this book for that long. Haven't gotten around to it yet, but I've heard amazing stories about it. Also about the movie, so I'm definitely gonna read this one. But it will just take a while, because there's so many books I still have to read. It's crazy. And we get to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I'm not gonna rant forever again about how horrible I found this book, but I did. But I made my way through it and finished it, so I don't have to ever read it again, and I can cross it off this list. The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells is the next one on the list, and I've read this one, and to be honest, it scared me. It was quite scary. So I can only imagine how scared the people were who heard this over the radio with sound effects and all. Because reading it already scared me. It's a really good book, and it's not that big, so you can finish it in a day or two. And I really enjoyed it. After the War of the Worlds, there's Men Without Women by Ernest Hemingway. Now that's an author I know. I didn't read anything of him yet, but I know his name, and he's supposed to be real good. So I might pick up some of his work, and if this is one of the books that's the best, then we'll start with that one. Then we get to Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. A book my boyfriend absolutely hates. He did his thesis on it, and it was just a pain in the ass to him. I've never read it. I've seen the movie with Jack Black, also him, right? But that's of course not really an accurate representation. But after my boyfriend complained so much about him, I'll probably never read this book, because well, it's not really inviting anymore if your boyfriend only complains about it, like for months on end. After that, we get A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, the only Charles Dickens book that's readable. Because it's tiny, that's why. All the Charles Dickens books are huge, and they're quite slow and quite an archaic language, which of course makes sense, but it makes them really hard to read. A Christmas Carol though, everyone knows the story of the ghosts that come to Scrooge, and that makes it already quite a lot easier to read it. I think I've read it twice already. It's just a fun read, and not too bad. Next up is Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. We have it in a collection together with Tom Sawyer. I haven't read either of them. I feel like I should, because I've heard so many good things about, well, both books actually, but also about Huckleberry Finn. Mark Twain, his name is so familiar, but yet I've never read any of his work. I think we even have more books of him, but I haven't read any of them, so I probably should very soon. Getting close to the end, finally. The next one is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I tried reading this. We had to for university, and I really tried, but I just couldn't. It's a weird book. It's not. It says it's a fast-moving narrative and a resourceful, sympathetic hero, but no, not really to me. So I might have read a few chapters and then gave up. Maybe now, a few years later, I should give it another try and I will finish it, but I'm just not really interested right now. The next one is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Casey. It's a title I know, I've heard about it, haven't read it though. Same for Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, except that I haven't heard about it. So I'm not sure if I'll read either of those two someday. Then another really big classic by Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo. I don't really like this author. I read The Three Musketeers. I went in all happy and enthusiastic, thinking, it's the Three Musketeers, I'm gonna like this book. And then the first chapter was only describing their clothing, and how the streets looked, and which kind of stones were on the pavement. So I'm really not a fan of Alexander, I'm sorry. And since this one is like twice as big as the Three Musketeers, I'm not sure if I'll ever read it, but it's on the list, so maybe. The next one is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I have the Dutch version. I haven't read it yet. I do want to read it. My mom read it and she was really intrigued. So I really do want to read it. But it hasn't happened yet because there's so many books I still have to read. Well, want to read, have to read, that's all classics. Want to read, still big list. But it's definitely on the list. So maybe one day. Almost there. Next up is The Divine Comedy by Dante. Not really sure why we have this. Probably because it was another Wordsworth classic, so it was cheap. And it just looks good in the collection, perhaps. And I'm not really sure if I'll ever read it, because it's not really my thing. But maybe someday, if I feel like it, I might pick it up and try it. I'm so surprised that the piles didn't fall over yet. Really. Last book. It's The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I actually quite like this book, which means I read it. I quite like Oscar Wilde. His writing style is quite interesting and it's not super slow, so that really helps. I also read The Importance of Being Earnest, which I really liked too. So I can cross this one off. 50 books to read before you die. Yeah. It's quite a pile. I'm surprised at how many of these books we have and at how many I've read. Still quite a lot to go though. But I'm not like making this an extra challenge, like I have to read all these books before I die, because otherwise things happen. But it's just fun to see what's on my bookmark, because I never really paid that much attention to it. So now I kind of know. And I really wonder which of these books you have read, or which books you want to read. And if there are any books that I know nothing about, but you really like them, I'd love to know as well, so just leave a comment down below. And yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. And then I'll see you in the next one, next week. Bye!